With the meteoric rise of analog horror within the past year, I made a video detailing many acclaimed video series, as well as some lesser known and more underground projects. Though in that video, I specifically omitted one series, that being the Walten Files. I'd felt like the series was woefully overrated. Viewers gave the series way more credit than I thought it deserved. Granted, I'd only watched the first 2 episodes at that point. Little did I know, the series would take me on a roller coaster of emotions and pique my interests to a new height. Basing many of his series loosely off of other horror franchises like Five Nights at Freddy's, Local 58, and Petscop, Martin Walls originated the Walten Files as a video game project, before transitioning it to the analog horror series we know today. So now, as I've carefully viewed and watched the entirety of Martin Walls' YouTube channel, I've come to a conclusion. The Walten Files, along with the other projects created by Martin Walls, unfortunately just aren't the best show of what analog horror can be. Though, with each and every upload, I can tell that creatively and production-wise, Martin Walls continues to grow as an artist, and continues to improve his content for the better. Without further ado, let's dive into the rabbit hole that is the Walten Files. The first episode, Company Introductory Tape, begins with an introduction to a company named Bunny Smiles. We learned that Bunny Smiles owns and operates the fast food and entertainment restaurant Bond's Burgers, with their main selling point being their animatronic characters. We're then introduced to the founders of Bunny Smiles, Felix Kranken and Jack Walten. After some abrupt cuts in the tape, we see a cartoon produced by Bunny Smiles. However, some glitches and errors in the recording portray one of the founders, Jack Walten, hinting at his disappearance on June 11, 1974. The eerie atmosphere builds as the sound of static screech from the TV. We then cut to a car's dash cam. The driver, an employee of Bunny Smiles, is sent to take care of the canine facility shown in a brief cut earlier in the episode. The facility is meant to store and protect any valuable items of the Bunny Smiles company. The employee enters the facility and begins his duties, all while the camera is focused on one of the animatronics, named Bon. As the employee continues his work, Bon begins to jerk and writhe, eventually letting out a burst of robotic, uncanny laughter. The employee is then seen with his camera making his way through the forest, proclaiming, "What was that thing?" It then cuts. Brian Stells was mutilated and killed. The second episode follows the same general steps. We're introduced to the Relocate project, meant to reprogram and redistribute the animatronic characters stored in the canine facility. More abrupt cuts in the footage hint at the presence of a corpse within the animatronic Banny, after which we're thrust back into the canine facility with a brief tour of the storage area, which we then see a portrayal of Bon killing a woman who entered the facility and stuffing her corpse into the HYHA animatronic. After that, we cut to 3 employees set to take care of and reprogram the animatronics. The dreary atmosphere in the facility is palpable, and once one lone employee decides to venture out on her own, the dread begins to set in. As she investigates the animatronics in the facility, she plays a cassette tape in one of the animatronics. That was a lot to digest, so let's pick it apart one at a time. On the positive side of things, the premise of the series is incredibly interesting. While it's clear that the series takes some inspirations from other well-known horror media, I really enjoy the plot and premise so far. Though that's where the positives end for me. Pacing is an incredibly hard challenge when it comes to making content, whether some parts are too long and drawn out or way too short and lack substance. It is a very fine line to walk. For both of these episodes, the pacing and overall structure are very disjointed. Going from one scene to another without any transition or connection may work in terms of a videotape being recorded over, but that only works for so long. And given the lengthy production time of each episode, the series would have benefited in both back-end production and release if these episodes had been released in shorter, segmented parts. Another issue I have with these 2 episodes is a lack of consistency in the art and animation. The episodes jump around from this cartoon style to this cartoon style to a pixelated video game style which doesn't make sense in a company tape. But more importantly, in terms of the characters, the art is fine for the animatronics. While they would have benefited from being 3D modeled instead of 2D illustrated, the way they're drawn and rigged leaves them with enough detail and depth to keep them relatively immersive. The main focus I have is on the human characters, which bafflingly take on a cartoon presence. These cartoon characters are closely tied to many of the horror-centric parts that are meant to immerse you, yet in fact they do the complete polar opposite and just break any immersion that the series could have made. Especially because the series has already used real pictures before with the title character, Jack Walten. I mean, just go to that AI face website, roll the dice a few times, and pick a face. Like, take for instance, the climactic moment in the first episode, in which Brian is running away from the canine facility, when he comes face to face with Bond and is killed. It is a genuinely nerve-wracking scene, though all of that tension is ruined by the use of cartoony visuals among body horror and blood. Like, what is this? A video game creepypasta with hyper-realistic blood? But okay, these were Martin Walls' first attempt at this style. How do the next videos in the lineup fare? Six months after the Walten Files Episode 2, Martin Walls released The Mysterious House on October of 2020. Following characters Ducky and Tammy, we see their adventure on a night of trick-or-treating. While not getting much candy, they stumble upon a house they haven't gone to yet. They're unusually welcomed in, and they're even given loads of candy. The residents seem fairly nice, if a little strange, though things get quiet as the residents invite the pair to sleep in their house. Reluctantly, the pair take the offer. Ducky is seen getting up and out of bed, and when Tammy tries to look for him, she wanders through the dark and foreboding house, until eventually finding Ducky. Though, not after long, she realizes where all the missing kids went, and unfortunately, she meets the same fate. I mean, goddamn. This is a very serious step up in terms of both art and pacing. The characters feel livelier and fit more into the context of a cartoon, and given the fact that the video manages to deliver a sense of mystery and dread over 13 minutes, the pacing here is great as well. Though there are still some areas that could use improvement, namely the text-to-speech voices.
Are you looking for candy?
While not detrimental, do pull me out of the experience ever so slightly. Also, the final jump scare could have been trimmed down by like 7 seconds. Despite that though, I genuinely enjoy this video. It's a great blend of art, pacing, and atmosphere that culminates in a great climactic scene. Though, that same year, Martin would release another video on December 31st, entitled Buzu's Ghosts. This time around, the video follows an old, selfish, and greedy man named Buzu who runs a toy shop. But one night on Christmas Eve, his employee breaks a mug, causing Buzu to dock the employee's pay. After a short while, there's a knock on the door. It's asking for charity money. Buzu refuses and essentially tells the kid to bugger off. That night, as Buzu closes up shop and heads to bed, he awakens to loud music coming from inside his house. After investigating, Buzu encounters Sad, the ghost of past experiences. Sad explains to Buzu his selfish and greedy actions, but Buzu refutes such actions. Sad then becomes enraged and transforms into a freakishly large form. Buzu awakens once again. Buzu then comes face to face with the jolly ghost of present times. The jolly ghost explains that Buzu's greedy actions have already harmed the people around him. Buzu tries to defend himself, but it's too late. The jolly ghost transforms into an uncanny, malformed version of itself. Buzu is left in the darkness, in which bell chimes are heard, and a brick hallway is opened up in front of him. Buzu traverses the hallway until coming face to face with mortality. Mortality tells Buzu that his time is up, and that his life is ready to be taken. Buzu pleads for his life, and ends up being escorted through a door. He awakens to see that he's in his toy shop, his employees hard at work. But something is off. Buzu receives a letter informing him of his own funeral, after which mortality reappears, now malformed. The three ghosts appear and offer Buzu one final gift. Buzu seems happy with his gift, don't you think? Well, holy fuck! This video has all of the same strengths of the mysterious house and more. The art and animation here are phenomenal at telling the story and mesh so well with the uncanny and gory visuals. I quite enjoy the characters as well. Buzu and his employee Banny work well as substitutes for Scrooge and Bob from A Christmas Carol. If you didn't catch it, this is a horror adaptation of A Christmas Carol. The scares are also pretty top-notch. Each of the ghosts has a unique way of building tension until their climactic scare. Though, speaking of building tension, god damn, while the video is an incredible production, it just drags on and on and on. With its nearly 40-minute runtime, this is one of the longest projects on Martin Walls' channel. I think that the video's length could have been halved and still had the same effect. But besides that, the voice work, while admirable, could also use some work. Though, with all these side projects, let's get back to the main topic of discussion, the Walten file. Clocking in at nearly an hour long, the third and most recent episode of the Walten Files was released in March of 2021. This episode follows Sophie Walten and Jenny Lederson as they play an unfinished version of a Bunny Smiles game called Bunny Farm. The game is in beta state and has many bugs and glitches. After a bit of playing, the duo discusses several disappearances linked with Bunny Smiles. Entering the character Billy's minigame, Sophie plays it before encountering some strange glitches depicting a corpse inside of Billy. The game crashes. The next day, Sophie boots up the game again, this time entering Banny's minigame. After toying around, the game cuts to an audio recording of an employee that describes the work life after Jack Walten disappeared, noting the irregular animatronic behaviors and stating that they'll repair the Bond animatronic soon. The minigame continues. This time, the player plays as the employee, and once approaching the Bond animatronic, Sophie returns to the main hub area and stumbles upon pages of a diary within the game detailing Felix Kranken's obsessive and unhealthy behavior. Sophie then enters Buzu's minigame. After a while, the series of minigames begin to depict human faces, one of which appears to be mutilated. Returning to the main hub once again, Sophie enters Shaw's minigame, Hide and Seek. After a few rounds, we see a depiction of a woman's corpse inside the Shaw animatronic. We then cut immediately to another minigame, which abruptly ends and begins to play a phone call. During the call, Felix is told to pick up Jack's kids from school, to which Felix reluctantly agrees. Later, Felix is shown to be drunk, yet still drives Jack's kids home. Felix crashes. Felix is said to have buried both of the kids in the woods, while Jack calls him frantically. The video ends with the final game section with Bon. God damn. With that nearly 1 hour runtime, there was bound to be a lot of plot to digest. But let's see what's been improved. First things first, the premise. I love the idea of using a video game to tell parts of the story, especially considering that this episode serves to recap the entire story so far. And while it may draw into video game creepypasta territory at times, I think that this episode stands out on its own for its incredible use of the medium to drive a narrative. It reminds me a lot of Petscop and the way that series told its story through the use of a video game. Another great thing about this episode is the use of human faces. Thank God. This episode not once uses a cartoon face for more than a few seconds before transitioning it into a gory version of the face, and I love it. The sense of uncanniness and shock from each use of gore is exquisite. Alongside that, I really love the improvements made to animatronic animation, especially within the major scare moments. It's such a shock when you see motion like this in an otherwise stationary video, and I love it. Hell, even the voice acting's improved, and while still being far from perfect, it fits the overall context it's being used in, and god damn, it really fits the atmosphere created by the episode. After the release of episode 3, there was a trailer for the rest of season 1 of the Walten Files, and while there isn't very much to go off of, it's interesting and shows promise for the future of Martin Walls' work. All in all, what was the point of all of this? I mean, Martin Walls' work is overall decent, with great production and artwork. Many of the projects that they've made are really, really good. However, the point I want to make is that Walls has consistently grown as an artist. With each and every new video that they put out, it's obvious that improvements have been made. For instance, improvements to pacing, going from the slow and often boring slog within the first 2 Walten Files episodes, to the newer, more concise and engaging projects like episode 3 and The Mysterious House. In terms of animation and art, Walls has improved tremendously, from the bland and uninspired characters and settings, to the new, rich, deep, and interesting scenarios and personalities. General production and storytelling have also improved dramatically, swapping art styles on the fly, interweaving unnecessary transitory scenes, and especially delivering underwhelming scares. All of those things are gone now for the most part. I still do think some things can be improved on, however. A more consistent release schedule of smaller, segmented videos would be nice, considering the many months between uploads at the moment. A few of the scares could be improved upon as well, alongside more minor changes and nitpicks. Though I know that for many creators, the struggle to improve upon one's work, to one-up oneself, is incredibly difficult. But while Martin Walls' projects may not be the cream of the crop when it comes to analog horror, they show how even the smallest steps can make a world of improvement. With that, have a good day, and take care.